Hey everyone, it's Tuesday, it's 3 o'clock. That means it's Tech Tuesday. So I am starting a series today on basically best practices for call centers. If you are an internet service provider, this would be very interesting to you, especially if you're a new internet service provider. And my guest for this series is going to be Jason Young, our VP of Call Centers, and I'll be right back with Jason. Hey everyone, again, welcome to Tech Tuesday. I am Rick Uzzi with Zcorum, and joining me is Jason Young, our VP of Call Centers from Zcorum. Jason, how are you doing?
All right. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So I think this is going to be a great series. This will be, like I say, especially helpful, I think. There are so many new internet service providers that are coming on board, and especially that are going to be coming on board here in the near future. There's been a lot of uh, federal money for broadband providers to be able to expand, current broadband providers to expand into new areas, but also brand new internet service providers that are just getting into the business. These could be municipalities, electric co-ops, EMCs, that are just starting into the business. So they need help in various areas. And it's really interesting, Jason. I was thinking back, this kind of, it takes me back to our days, some of which even are prior to you, where that's basically how we got started. Really, we got started as an internet service provider, a dial-up internet service provider in the early to mid 90s. I joined the company in the mid 90s, and we were providing dial-up, and quickly, not too long after that, we started providing wholesale services to ISPs. And one of the first things we started doing was outsourced help desk services for them. But of course, it was dial-up service. So that's all that we were providing at the time. But certainly the times have changed. But it's kind of going back to our roots now, in that we're going to be seeing a lot of new internet service providers coming on board. So I just wanted to let you know that we can help with your tech support services if you need that. Certainly, we can provide anywhere from 24/7 to overflow support, weekend support, after hours, that kind of thing. But we also wanted to make this series beneficial for those of you that actually are thinking about maybe starting your own call center. So we're going to cover various topics, and today we're going to be talking about just in general the building that you might have to get. So let's start there, Jason. I thought that was kind of a good first topic for this week was, if somebody is going to be looking at setting up their call center, and of course, it's very possible that you've got service providers that already have a call center of some type. It could be maybe an EMC that they're taking calls on power, customers and maybe customer
Right.
service kinds of things, but there's probably not a lot of technical support involved with power customers. You're not helping them, do wiring and that kind of stuff. But so
Mhm.
even those folks might need to expand, and maybe they need to expand their call center, open a new one, that kind of thing. So let's just start with the building. What if somebody's looking at, let's say, brand new, getting a call center facility? What kind of things do they need to be thinking about as far as the facility itself goes?
Well, the first thing I would mention would be the size of the facility. I think that a good way to scale that would be you're probably looking at 2,500 square feet for every 50 seats that you need, is a good rough estimate.
Mhm.
That'll give you a few office space, a break room, those types of things that you'll need. Obviously, restrooms and whatnot. And when I say 50 seats, I don't mean 50 total employees. I mean, that'll be 50 desks. And if you run a shared desk environment or those types of things, you could scale up to as many as 80 employees to accommodate with just 50 seats. You're going to have some overlap, obviously, of shifts, but you want to be able to have everybody working at one time with nobody sitting around. You have a shared environment with part time help and those types of things.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's an interesting point in that if they're thinking about doing broadband support, they need to provide 24/7. When I say they need to provide either themselves or through with a partner, they need to be providing support 24/7, right?
That's exactly right. Um, you want to also take. I didn't want to leave this part out, but you also want to make sure that when you're doing the building, you're also going to have to facilitate the data that you need, the bandwidth and whatnot that you would need to accommodate all those stations working at one time. um, and make sure that you're not slow, because the worst case scenario is the computer's not working well, and your customers on the other end of the line and they become frustrated.
Hmm. And what's the usual cause of, let's say, slow? With that, you're talking about actual broadband connection that you need a big enough pipe
Right
to the
into
building.
the facility. I mean, you want to have an adequate bandwidth that's coming into your facility that would facilitate, 50 people using some Java-based diagnostics tool or whatever it may be that you're using. That chews up bandwidth, and when you have so many doing it at one time, you want to make sure you're adequate enough that the computer's not acting slower than what the customer is, and then the customer becomes frustrated with you, waiting on you to give them the answer that they need.
And then, I guess there's other things that you need to be thinking about when you're talking about just a facility, a building in its own, as far as with any kind of building. So what are the kinds of, um, you know, things you need to be thinking about? Like, I guess you need a conference room, you need
Yeah,
break
you
rooms
have
and,
to, I would suggest conference room, break room. You'd have facilities, obviously, for restrooms. The break room would have to have vending machines, that type of thing. You would also need some office space, like small offices for your human resources and your management staff and those types of things where you can have meetings. And all of those things would have to be, with phones in every station and those types, bandwidth, um, different networks depending on what they're on for permission sets. For you wouldn't want to have your entry level employees with access to payroll, for example.
Mhm.
So you'd want to tighten that up security wise. So there's a lot of IT work to do there, to make sure that it's done the way it should be.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of phones, that's obviously a big part of it because it is a call center. So, what do they need to be thinking about as far as phones, and the type of equipment that they'll need there?
Well, the first thing is if you're going to have a physical building, you look to have a PBX, and then if there's a PBX on site, a physical PBX, you're going to have someone on your staff that's technically capable of configuring different IVRs or different skill-based routing or those types of things that you do inside the PBX. The new thing that's kind of coming in that most carriers are going to now is a cloud-based PBX that you can do IP phones or soft phones at every desk. But the catch with that is it's monthly recurring fees. Even a baseline one of those, you're looking at $100 plus per seat per month. So it becomes pretty pricey as you scale that out. And then, obviously you got to be careful with your bandwidth there because now you're also running your voice out over the internet too. So it's really important to make sure you don't have, that's configured correctly, that you have, your voice taking priority. It's priority traffic over your data services, and it gets a piece of the pie that it needs to adequately run voice. And then that becomes, an option that you have to weigh. Is it better for us to have a physical PBX in there where we have to pay for support yearly, as well as have someone capable to configure it, or do I go with IP cloud based that would allow for that vendor that I purchased from to give us full support on it, but it becomes pricey, in the $100 to $150 a seat range, and as you continue to grow, that becomes a monthly reoccurring fee that is really substantial.
Yeah. And, I guess there's other software involved. So what about, when you take the call, you're going to need to, and I don't know if this is part of that cloud-based PBX, but you need to be able to input support tickets, ticketing systems, and what about call recording, those kinds of things?
Yeah, you have to be able to select a vendor that gives you call recording. I mean, that's important to protect yourself. I always, tell my agents that it's really the protection for you. It's nobody trying to get anyone in trouble for taking a call a certain way,
Hmm.
but you could have a customer claim anything, and you can really go back to this recording and say, "Hey, here's what really happened. Here's the recording of how we handled it," and then you got to store those recordings. So there becomes a vendor that needs to be able to store those over a certain period of time, whether it's 6 months or a year. That's important. I think probably to manage the call center, one of the toughest things to do is to have supervisors that don't know what their agents are doing. So you have to look for a vendor that has some type of what I call real-time monitoring software that allows you and your supervisors to see what every agent's doing, if they're in break mode, if they're calling the user back if they've been on a phone call 40 minutes and you want to go check and make sure they're doing okay. How many calls they've taken in the past hour. There's a lot of things that you can see real time that allow you to help manage your resources appropriately, especially in the sense when you get into skill based routing, which I think is what some of the cloud providers allow you to do. You might have one group of people that take email calls and one take home networking, and then you might have one that can take fiber, or one that might do gaming and YouTube and Netflix and those types of things. So you have set up all the different hunt groups. And what you want to make sure is you don't have one guy that's only taking 2 calls all day and then another guy that's taking 40. So there's a balance based on skills and trend analysis on what calls to expect in each queues, in order to keep your people engaged and productive.
Yeah, in fact, and we'll cover this in another week, would be training, but I'm assuming that the call recording is something that's very useful for that as well, right?
Yeah, I use that in my QA department. It's a good way to. There's 2 things I use those call recordings for. We use them to score calls, of course, to give the agents a grade, help with their evaluation, help identify training issues. But we also use that to kind of stay in front of the curve by listening to what the customer requests are. If we get some requests from customers to maybe support a printer or something that might be outside the realm of what we typically do, if we get enough requests, that's when we start making those real business decisions on, let's go ahead and offer that service. It's something that the customer really needs.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess that's something that we, in the past, for example, I guess we started seeing a bigger and bigger number of callers about, for example, Wi-Fi, home networking, and I'm assuming that then informed on what we should be supporting, correct?
Yeah, that was years ago when we first started. Back in the day of the first cable modems, you had one standalone desktop computer that was hooked up to the cable modem, and nowadays I would venture to say 90+% have more than one device. I mean, you have everything from smart refrigerators now to security systems to Nest, to Netflix, of course, and all the smart TV apps that you need to support. So, what you do is you just listen to what the customer has and what the needs are and what their requests are. And, wireless printers are one. That became a thing a couple of years back where, wireless network printers where everybody can print from their iPhone or whatever they have, whatever device it is. And, that we decided we needed to go and support that.
Yeah. So, all right, so we said obviously the phones are really kind of critical. So, what's involved as far as redundancy, either in facilities or phone systems? What do you need to take into account there?
For us, what we have is 2 physical call centers that are both linked by one circuit. They are linked together by one circuit. So if any one call center goes down, or where the phone lines are coming terminated in, whether it be data or the PRI lines or what have you, all of the overflow then just goes to the other call center, and it allows us to be able to have complete redundancy. No matter, we have no one point of failure. So when you're thinking about building a call center on your own, you got to think about what might happen if there's a fiber cut coming into the facility. And if you go down hard for 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever it may be, customers don't want to hear that you get a busy signal, right? So the form of redundancy is very tough when you're just going to build one small center on your own, and something you need to think through. Whether it be customers that request a service level agreement, or something of that nature that they expect you to be up 4 nines, as an example. If you're down one time for 8 hours, then you missed your SLA, and now you're in trouble at the end of the month. So that's something you have to think about.
Yeah, and I guess that's really important if that fiber cut, it impacts your subscribers as well, because maybe they're down and they're calling to try to get help and they can't even find out what's going on.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's another big thing you think about when you're talking about the number of phone lines or PRIs or things. If you go with the physical setup, if you have an outage situation, and you're normally at about 60 to 70% capacity on your PRIs, when the outage situation comes, the spike's going to carry you over the 100%. You're going to get some customers that are just getting busy signals, and that's going to add to frustration. You can do things like put messages on the front end of the IVR to make sure they know that there's an outage, and you know where the problem is, and engineers are working on it, and all of those things. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the capacity to even field the call, they're not going to hear the message. So you basically have to oversubscribe what your normal day is and plan for those types of things. And again, that does get pricey.
Yeah.
It does get pricey once you want to talk about the average numbers of calls and then add another 40% onto the total lines that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think this was a good start in our series here, talking about kind of if somebody's thinking about doing this, what you're going to need as far as a facility goes. So, and also again, keep in mind that as you're thinking about this, if you think about, should we build or should we maybe go to an outsourced provider, make sure that you keep us in mind. So please do that. And if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, just go ahead and click the subscribe button, click the little bell, and you'll be notified when we're live. And Jason and I are going to be doing this for several weeks coming up. Each Tuesday at 3 o'clock. We'll skip, I think, some holiday, like the Christmas holiday week in there, so we won't be live then, but that week's. But, we will go ahead and cover this. So next week, we're going to be talking about hiring, which is going to be important. So it's like, what do you look for in a person that's going to be doing tech support? How do you do that? And I know that's a real challenge these days. It's been a real challenge finding people do any kind of work these days. So we'll talk about that next week. So make sure that you tune in. And again, check out our website if you're interested in that. And if you are, if you do tune in and you're watching live, feel free to ask questions. We'll have that where we can bring up and answer the questions here with Jason while he is on with us. So, and if you're watching this later, you can go ahead and just type a comment in YouTube on this video, and I'll get that, and I'll make sure that I get that question to Jason if it's something that I can't answer. So again, we want to help you if you are, whatever your situation is, if you think you're going to build this call center on your own, or if you do need help maybe from somebody like Zecorum to take on that support burden for you. We've been doing it, like I mentioned, we've been doing internet support since the 90s, really early 90s, if you think about doing our own support, and then mid 90s doing support for other internet service providers, so we'd be happy to help you. Jason, I appreciate your time today, and I will see you next Tuesday, same time, same channel, same YouTube channel, 3 o'clock on Tuesday. I'll see you then.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and you guys take care. Bye-bye. All right, Jason.